So good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on what time zone you're in. It's afternoon for me as I'm in Central Time Zone. My name is Mindy Gayer, and I am the Southeast Region Business Development Manager for the Entrust Group, and also one of the co-hosts for the webinar today, where we are going to discuss the basics of self-directed IRAs and some of the benefits of utilizing self-directed accounts. And then I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Ray Sharif Askari, who is the Director of Investor Relations and Business Development at Grayscale Investments. And Ray is going to be covering what digital assets are and how they work, the benefits versus the risk for investors, and how to get started investing. We hope that y'all find the information presented today on this webinar valuable and informative. Everyone is going to be on mute, but if you have questions as we go throughout the presentation, please go ahead and start typing those questions in the questions box on the GoToWebinar dashboard. And we will be answering those questions during the live Q&A at the end. Also, as a reminder, we will be providing an audio recording of the webinar to everyone in the event that you need to leave the webinar early, or if you would like to share it with someone, or if you just really loved the content and want to hear it again. That will be available shortly after the webinar. Before we get started, just a quick disclaimer. The Entrust Group does not provide tax advice, investment advice, or legal advice. So we are not CPAs, we're not attorneys, and we're not financial advisors. And we do not recommend or endorse any investments, products, or services. All of the information in this presentation is for educational purposes only. We do, however, recommend that you do seek investment advice, tax advice, and legal advice before entering into any investments. All right, during this webinar, I am going to quickly review who the Entrust Group is for those of you who are not already familiar with us, provide a quick overview of self-directed IRAs, their benefits, and the process behind utilizing one for investing. Then I'm going to turn it over to Ray from Grayscale, who will provide an overview of the digital assets and analysis of the digital asset market, review a Bitcoin investor study, and then compare investment options. Then again, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to open it up for live Q&A at the end. So everyone is going to be on mute, but feel free to start asking questions throughout the presentation in the GoToWebinar box located on your dashboard. All right, a little background on myself. So as I mentioned earlier, my name is Mindy Gayer, and I'm the Southeast Region Business Development Manager for the Entrust Group. I've been with the company for almost 4 years. Prior to joining Entrust, I've worked for several years in the retirement industry space. My main focus is working primarily with individual alternative asset investors, investment sponsors, issuers, so basically any company raising capital. I work with a lot of CPAs, attorneys, and advisors who are diversifying their clients' retirement portfolio with alternative assets. And I work out of our Nashville, Tennessee office. All right, a little background on Entrust for those of you who are not already familiar with the Entrust Group. We are self-directed IRA record keepers and custodians who specialize in holding alternative assets inside retirement accounts for our clients. We have been doing this for nearly 40 years, and we have around 22,000 accounts, and that holds roughly $4 billion in investor assets. And one factor that makes Entrust unique is our single point of contact business model that we offer our partners and clients when they open an account with us. And we do that because we understand this area of business is much more complex. So we like to provide a higher level of customer service to our clients and partners. Most of our staff here at Entrust hold the CISP designation, which is the Certified IRA Services Professional. We offer national continuing education classes for CPAs and realtors. And we also sponsor the IRA Academy, which is where we actually teach the course that trains others in our industry to pass the CISP course. All right, now that I gave you a little background on the Entrust Group, let's discuss some of the benefits of utilizing a self-directed IRA. The first being that you are able to take control of your retirement. So you, as the account holder, are able to make all of your own investment decisions. This also allows you to further diversify your retirement portfolio. So as you may already be aware, the spectrum of what you can invest in using a self-directed IRA is very broad. There's actually only 3 things that you are not allowed to invest in inside of a self-directed IRA. That's life insurance, collectibles, and S corporations. And this also allows you to invest in many different asset classes. And it also allows you to invest in assets that you know and understand the types of risks and returns that are associated with those investments. Another benefit is the potential tax savings using a self-directed IRA. Contributions to your account could be tax deductible, and earnings can grow tax deferred or tax free depending on the type of account that you're using. All right, that was my very quick and brief overview of self-directed IRAs and the Entrust Group, and concludes my portion of the webinar. Now I'm going to turn it over to the Director of Investor Relations and Business Development at Grayscale Investments, Ray Sharif Askari, to share her expertise on investing in digital assets. Again, as a reminder, if you have questions, please go ahead and type those questions in the Q&A box on your GoToWebinar dashboard. And after Ray's presentation, we will start answering those questions.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on to the Entrust Group. Excited to be here. A little bit of background on me. I lead investor relations for Grayscale. We're the world's largest digital currency asset manager. I've been at Grayscale for about 3 years, and before that I worked for 10 years at UBS Investment Bank. So again, really excited to be on, and let's kick off the presentation. So I too have some disclaimers. First of all, I just want to say that anything that we discuss here today is not investment advice. Cryptocurrencies are obviously risk assets, and our private placements are available only to accredited investors. So I want to, can everybody still see my screen? See the presentation?
Yes, Ray, I can see the new asset class slide. Now it's back to the other view.
Oh, you can? Okay, great. Thank you. Here we go. Are we good now?
Now it's good. Now it's in presentation mode. Thank you.
Okay, sorry everyone. I'm a little bit of a novice with this, still getting used to a pandemic world. Anyway, so let's talk about cryptocurrencies. Obviously, in the last couple of years, we hear more about them. It's kind of started to be considered a new asset class from a nascent technology. And, our clients are often investing in digital currencies for the first time. So that gives us some unique insights around the role that they view digital currencies playing within the broader diversified portfolio. And I think there's a lot of investable cases for the leading digital currencies today. First, people typically first get their exposure through Bitcoin. And then we start to see asset diversification within the asset class. So, why are people even thinking about this? It's an interesting asset class because you have a few different characteristics that provide diversification from traditional assets and that you don't typically see in one asset class. So for instance, Bitcoin has come to be viewed like as a store of value. So similar to gold in that it's scarce, verifiable, durable, recognizable, and fungible. And at the same time, it's also portable and divisible. It also has a really broad network. So people have talked about the network effects, and you have, at the same time, you have the store of value. Some folks see it as an opportunity for the upside associated with a new technology. So for some people, they're interested in digital currencies because it's akin to investing in an early startup, except that you're doing it at the protocol level. So there's a lot of use cases today. We have, peer-to-peer transactions, decentralized applications, which we'll touch on, file storage, social networks, media platforms, asset tracking, and it's become quite broad. So let's talk a little bit about Grayscale. Who are we? So Grayscale has been around since 2013. We are currently the world's largest digital currency asset manager. We manage about 30 billion across our 14 products, 6 of which have public quotations today. and 3 of which are SEC reporting. So our mission is simple. We want to create safe, secure, cost-effective access for digital currencies to people that don't want to deal with the headaches of sourcing, storing cryptocurrencies, because they're a digital bearer asset and it can be quite difficult. So we've created a family of access products to hopefully make life easier for everyday investors that want to get the exposure. And again, in my role, I'm in investor relations, and in my role, I talk to investors every day. So we answer questions, we meet a lot of new people and kind of help them to think about this asset class and how it might fit within their portfolio. So what are digital assets? What are cryptocurrencies? How should we think about this? So again, this is a broad asset class at this point, and there's a lot of different protocols and use cases. But basically, there are some certain characteristics in that they all use blockchain technology and they're decentralized. And so ultimately, cryptocurrencies, and Bitcoin specifically, is a form of decentralized money that everyone in the world can use. So the applications, today we have seen a lot of different applications and use cases since Bitcoin was first created in 2009. And so we have the store of value type of assets. And the biggest one that people know about is Bitcoin. Bitcoin has become viewed as a version of digital gold because of the characteristics that it shares with gold. And at the same time, though, we think that there is a tremendous opportunity for a world in a future state where Bitcoin has the opportunity to fulfill the vision consistent with why it was created in the first place. So it allows people through the blockchain technology to send money anywhere in the world in 10 minutes or so, basically for free. Another big use case that we're seeing is the privacy narrative. There are different tokens out there that have certain privacy aspects to them, and this has become increasingly important in a world where there is a lot of concern around data integrity and security. You know, individuals want their personal information to remain private and untraceable. And so you might have heard of Zcash. That's an example of a privacy token. It's a peer-to-peer digital currency network with privacy and security enhanced features. And it allows transactions to be validated without revealing all the info about those transactions. Another big use case is data services. So there's a lot of kind of centralization today around how we're storing and sharing our data, whether it's Amazon Web Services or video transcoding through YouTube. And so there's some protocols that are aiming to create a more decentralized version of these applications, like a Filecoin or a LivePeer. And then, of course, to save, not the best for last, but something that's been really topical in the news is DeFi, so decentralized applications. And that has become, DeFi is an umbrella term used to describe a series of different protocols that are built on the Ethereum network and that have tried to create a decentralized financial system. So to replace a lot of these financial aspects of the financial system, like borrowing, lending, capital markets, exchanges, with a decentralized analog where there is no central party controlling everything that's happening. So I think, again, getting a little bit more into the details, and I do want to keep this relatively high level. How does Bitcoin, where does Bitcoin come from? What is it? We've heard about mining. So Bitcoin mining is the process whereby Bitcoin comes into circulation. Basically, the way it works is that this system was created where computers effectively solve a really complex math problem that takes a lot of power, computational power. And when they solve that math problem, two things happen. One, new Bitcoin are created, which is really not unlike gold or other resources that are extracted from the ground. And by solving this complex math problem, Bitcoin miners make the Bitcoin payment network trustworthy by, validating in a way the integrity of the network. So because they're incented to mine these Bitcoin by solving these math problems, then the network itself, which people use to send money, is more secure. One of the things we've touched on Bitcoin as an asset class. And when I think about asset classes, I look for certain things. And for me, something that's verifiably scarce is important. If I want to invest in something, I expect or I hope that over the longer term, its value goes up. And for that to happen, you have to believe that there's some sort of scarcity. Investable assets, in our view, are scarce. And that's what's interesting about Bitcoin. It's a form of money, and unlike fiat money, the supply is capped at 21 million tokens. There will only ever be 21 million tokens. And this graph doesn't show, you can see it's kind of asymptotic. It doesn't go all the way to 21 because a lot of tokens have actually been already lost and sent into the ether forever, which is a reason that folks don't necessarily want to custody their own tokens and want to use financial products, which we will discuss later. But from an economic perspective, we live in a world where governments are printing money, which we'll talk about. And so people like a store of value asset where there's no central authority to manipulate the supply, and where they know that mathematically it's set, there can only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. And we show here a little bit of just over time, you can see that right now we're about at 20, you know what, I'm sorry, I misspoke before. This graph doesn't go to the end, but you can see that we've mined about, close to 19 million of the Bitcoin are already out there in circulation. And around the year, I want to say 2041, because of the rate of inflation slowing, we'll get to those 21 million Bitcoins will be in circulation, and then no more can ever be created. So in that way, it's deflationary in a world where, as you can see in this graph about fiat money, we are printing a lot of money. We clearly have had a disastrous global pandemic, and as part of the policy response, we've seen unprecedented monetary and fiscal stimulus, which means that governments, and not just ours, has started to print money at an unprecedented rate, and that is in contrast to an asset that you can't increase its supply. So I think the policy response to COVID has really caused people to take another look at Bitcoin and at digital assets as a form of money that can't be controlled, and as something that is more important in their portfolios in a world where the value of fiat is increasingly drawn into question. And again, so let's talk about risks, right? We've said a lot of reasons why Bitcoin is interesting and why digital assets are interesting. And again, I want to take a minute to remind everyone that this is a nascent asset class. This asset class has only been around for 10 years, and it's only really become popular and liquid in the last 5 or so. And if you think about other asset classes, they've been around a lot longer. Even leveraged loans, syndicated loan market was created in the mid-80s. So this is very new. It's a risk investment. There's a lot of unknowns, and it's really critical that people think about right-sizing the investment, and whether that's 0.5% or 5% of someone's assets, that's really an individualized decision, and it's critical to take the risks into account and really only think about investing in this asset class if you have the long-term time horizon and a higher risk tolerance, or at least a part of your portfolio in which you want a higher risk tolerance. As a reminder, if you have questions, you can go ahead and type them into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screens. So the digital asset market, I have 2 snapshots here. The digital asset market, where the price of Bitcoin, over a year, when we did this over 2 years ago, was about 11,800. Now we're much closer to, 33,000, and we've been up to close to 60. So, what's been going on? In what way has the market been changing? Over the last 2 years, the digital asset market has matured exponentially. And part of that has been because of the attention it's gotten, because of it's a store of value asset in a world where there are some real inflationary fears. There's a lot more confidence in the market than there's been a few more years ago. And this is in a way manifested through all the dollars that have been going into this space from VC and corporate perspectives like Tesla, Square, PayPal. So the infrastructure build and investment has given investors the motivation they have needed to really look into this space. And like we said, COVID has been a part of that. So, and the Bitcoin as digital gold narrative has become a lot more mainstream too, and it's become a legitimate tool in portfolio management. You know, anecdotally, in my role, we talk to a lot of institutions. We talk to, you know, pensions and endowments and family offices, and, you know, the mix has changed recently. And as we talk to the analysts and, you know, the allocators at these places, a lot of, it's almost as though where historically there was career risk in, you know, suggesting to do work around digital assets, now it's something that they can't ignore. And in fact, there's more career risk around, you know, not doing the work. And they see that it's fine to, you know, do the work and decide that the risk profile isn't appropriate and they don't want to make an investment. But it's something everybody definitely has felt recently that they want to do the work on and learn about. And also in the news, of course, big managers have come out and said that they are making allocations, and that's really set the stage for other asset managers to come out and say that, you know, they too have been investing. So like, you know, I like when you think about the market, you can think about different types of markets. Digital currencies, there's like 9,000 of them, right? So, and a lot of them are not going to be around in a few years from now. But right now there's, you know, we like to think about it in different types of tokens, and we have our large cap tokens, which comprise the biggest, you know, part of the market from a market cap perspective. And these include like the Bitcoins and Ethereum and Bitcoin Cash and Litecoin of the world. And they've been around longer, they're more liquid, they have more, you know, circulating supply, and they have different use cases. And so, you know, a few of these examples are the large cap tokens. And then there's also a lot of new projects that are more, I think about them the way I would think about making a small investment in a VC company, because we're investing at the protocol level. And some of these, you know, we've launched products around Filecoin and Basic Attention Token and Decentraland. And these are often newer projects that are trying to do something ambitious, and but that really give folks an opportunity, if they if it's a project that resonates with them, to get exposure a little bit earlier in the game. And obviously, you know, I for me, the risk profiles are different as well. So I think there's a lot of different tokens out there, and folks should make sure to do the work and be thoughtful around how they're thinking about this. And to that end, we've created a lot of educational resources on our website. On our insights page, we have primers, which really attempt to give investors the ability to learn more about each of these protocols and several others. So one of the big reasons that Bitcoin is interesting and digital currencies are interesting is because it's been shown to help portfolios, you know, modest allocations have helped otherwise traditional portfolios to really outperform over the longer term. So I think, and this graph is really interesting. It's illustrative, obviously, and it's fictitious, but it's something that, you know, we've been looking at for a while. And so we see, and it seems that a lot of traditional investors are starting to see digital currencies as an alternative asset class that does have a place in investor portfolios. And given all of that, I think I love this graph, because if you look, you know, you look on the right, you see global debt and global stocks and all these assets that we're all really familiar with. And then I go to look at that teeny little, you know, horizontal line on the left. Digital assets is a really small part of that bigger, global tapestry of investable assets. And to me, that's really interesting because it shows how earlier we are in the game, and it shows what a tremendous opportunity there is. We looked at, and for a while ago, a couple of years back, we did an interesting investor study, and the findings were really elucidating because it seems like people were really excited about learning more about Bitcoin. They like the idea, they don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin, and they can literally buy $10 worth if they want. They felt like they agreed, with what I'm saying today, that, it's still very early stages and there's potential for growth. And about 3/4 of the folks we spoke to have really the Bitcoin as digital gold narrative resonated with them, given its scarcity, fungibility, durability. And I would be interested to see, to what extent, if we were to conduct this study today, how would these findings change in the context of a world where store of value assets are more important to investors, in the world where we're really having inflation and where people are looking for alternative places to find deflationary products. So if you've done the work and you've read, and we can help you get up to speed. We have a lot of resources, and one does get to the point where they decide that they want to make a small allocation to digital currencies because they're curious and they want to learn, or they've decided that this is something that they want to add a small amount to their portfolios. There's a few ways that they can go about doing this. One, there's just the traditional, you can go and open an account on an exchange, whether it's Coinbase or Gemini, and buy the tokens directly. I do think there are people with the domain expertise to go and do that and find a way to custody it and keep those tokens safe. Most people don't, the fact that it's a digital bearer asset and it's something that just don't have a lot of experience with. Most people are used to owning stocks or bonds where there's a third party that says, Ray owns this asset and I don't want to, be worrying about losing my private keys or getting hacked, and just want to own it in a way that they're familiar with, like financial products. Which brings us to, buying stock from fintech companies. Obviously some big ones, Coinbase has gone public. Every day there are going to be more ways to express views in the space by buying equity in companies that perform services around blockchain and digital assets. There are also different providers of private placement. So for us, we have 14 products that give investors access to different tokens, and accredited investors can buy those products directly from us. And so if that's something that you want, anybody that's accredited can certainly reach out to us at info@grayscale.com. There's also public quotations. 6 of our products today have public quotations on the OTC markets. Those shares are backed by the underlying tokens, and there are other products as well. And then, of course, like any capital market, the derivatives market has developed, and that is one way that typically more sophisticated investors get exposure. So I think one of the other, and since this is, we're working with Entrust on this, I will say that, thinking about Bitcoin in a tax-advantaged account, and specifically through your Entrust account, is something that I'm talking to people more and more about, because over the last few years, a lot of people have made a lot of money in digital currency investing, and they've paid a lot of taxes. And so they are looking for more efficient ways to get that exposure. And given the long-term investment horizon and the upside around digital assets, they want to use this as a long-term portfolio hold, and they want to do it in a tax-advantaged way. And so I think that's a really interesting perspective. And I've gone on the radio and said this, the way we think about those pharmaceutical commercials, go talk to your doctor about XYZ. I always tell people to talk to their IRA provider about getting access to financial products that will give them exposure to Bitcoin. And so with that, we have our disclosures, risk factors. I think we can turn it over to questions.
All right, thank you, Ray, for that excellent insight and overview of the digital asset world. For anyone that would like to invest in digital assets using their IRA money, It's 3 basic steps. And Ray, if you want to flip to the next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. So step 1 is going to be opening up your self-directed IRA, and to open the account, you can do that either online or via a paper application. And then you're going to fund the IRA, and you can do that either by rolling over money from an old 401k, 403b, 457, TSP, any type of qualified plan. You can also do a transfer, which is moving money from an IRA at another institution over to Entrust. We are custodian record keeper. Or you can fund the account via a cash contribution if you're eligible. Or you can fund the IRA via a combination of all of those. The only thing that you are not allowed to do is commingle pre-tax money and post-tax money into the same IRA. You can combined rollover, transfer, cash contribution all into one account as long as it's all the same type of money. Step 2 is going to be identifying your investment strategy. So that could be investing in the digital assets via a private fund like Grayscale, direct holdings, or going the LLC route, where you create an LLC, your IRA is the member of the LLC, you open a bank account in the name of that LLC, you transfer the money from your custodian over to the LLC bank account, and you're buying assets that way. It's also very important that you conduct your own due diligence in step 2 when you're identifying your investment and your investment strategy, because you as the account holder are the fiduciary of your self-directed IRA. So you have the responsibility of doing your own due diligence on the investments that you're investing in. And then step 3 is going to be making the investment. And to do that, you're just submitting either a subscription agreement, purchase agreement, or the LLC operating agreement, depending on which strategy you're utilizing, to your custodian, and they will process the investment for you. All right, before we dive in to the live Q&A, for those that don't have time to stick around, I just wanted to quickly mention that we have another webinar scheduled for August 18th, and the topic is going to be direct real estate investments versus REITs. If you would like more information on today's topic, there will be a brief webinar or brief survey after the webinar, so please complete that. Also, as a reminder, we are going to be providing audio recording of the webinar. So just check for that on our Learning Center. I believe those are also emailed out as well. We also love your feedback and topic suggestions. So we have a 2-question post-event survey when you exit the webinar. So if you have a few minutes to spare, we'd really appreciate you completing that upon your exit of the webinar. And Ray, you can go ahead and flip to the next couple slides, and we'll go ahead and start the live Q&A. All right, and could you go to the next slide, please? Perfect. All right, first question is, what defines an accredited investor for the purpose of investing in this asset class? An accredited investor is having over 1 million in net worth, but Ray, I'll go ahead and let you expound on that since it really more applies for your asset.
Yep, so accredited investors are those who have either any of these following criteria, meet any of these following criteria: over 1 million in net worth outside your primary home, over 200,000 in income for the last 2 years consecutively, or 300,000 with a spouse. And recently the definition has been expanded to include anybody who has a Series 7 and Series 82. And we're happy to, I think we can, maybe Mindy can send around the definition after this call.
Yep, absolutely. Also, our contact information is listed on the slide, so feel free to write down our contact information. If you have questions for us, give us a call or email as well. All right, next question. Can you invest for an individual in what they want? I'm not completely certain of what that question is asking, but if you're asking, can you invest using IRA money or as an individual, I believe the answer is yes, but Ray?
Yeah, so we have a lot of institutional investors, And we have a lot of individual investors, and some of them have come to us directly and set up an account with us. And some of them have done that and also, have made investments through their IRA. So if an individual meets the definition of an accredited investor, they can invest in any of our family of the 14 products that we laid out early in the presentation and any combination thereof to create an allocation that works for them, and we can work with them on that. And most of our products have a minimum of $25,000.
All right. Who comes up with the math problem? More problems given and solved, more Bitcoins in circulation, decreasing value.
So actually, the amount of Bitcoin in circulation, since the total value is set, we haven't really seen, as more Bitcoin have been mined, we haven't seen value decrease because it's just fixed. And the algorithm is set so that difficulty of the math problem, so to speak, which is all, set by the algorithm, adjusts periodically. So again, whether or not the real value to me is how many Bitcoin can there ever be?
And then a follow-up to that question was that means prices can be manipulated by the issuers of the math problems?
There is no issue. So the important thing here is this is all part of an algorithm. This is a complex, there's a hash rate. This is part of an algorithm. This isn't somebody's writing a math problem. I use the term math problem as an analogy, but no one is actually writing math problems.
All right. Which currencies are you currently accepting as an investment option?
So I would take everyone back to our today, our product suite is outlined on our Grayscale slide. So these are the 14 products that we have today. And not all of them, I will say a lot of them are not currently open for subscription, but if there is something you're interested in, you can feel free to reach out to us.
Great, thank you. Do you have any ideas why sudden drop in price and what to do about volatility?
What was the first part of the question?
Do you have ideas why sudden drop in price and what to do about volatility?
I think that this, again, it's a nascent asset class, so it's going to be volatile. And to me, the two things that I do is I think about just a longer term investment horizon. So the volatility becomes less important to me because I use money that I don't need in the near term. And then I think because we live in the information age, we do have a lot of sell-offs based on news, but I think of it as a long-term investment and I try not to get distracted by the short-term movements.
All right, great. And would you mind flipping back to our contact information screen really quick? Thank you. Next question, have you invested in XRP?
We had an XRP trust, which we do not have anymore.
All right, great, thank you. Which cryptocurrencies would you consider a store of value? Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin are too volatile to be considered a store of value.
So for me, again, I bifurcate the volatility. I think about it as a long-term store of value. And, I think over time, it's something that it's not today. Maybe it is volatile and it's maybe not actually something that a lot of people will be comfortable considering as digital gold today, but in a future state, I see it as an option on a store of value asset like digital gold.
Okay, great, thank you. Please touch on the UK decision to deny Bitcoin and cryptocurrency in Europe.
I think just with in any new technology, different regulators are going to have a lot of different approaches. And we've seen a lot of that recently, and we're going to continue to see that. But I think that over the longer term, we'll find some equilibrium where folks will have access to this asset class.
All right, thank you. Can Entrust account holders use cash in their account to purchase actual coins through Entrust, and how would the coins be held? So if the question is asking about precious metals are allowed inside of a self-directed IRA. They just have to be IRA approved metals, and they have to be held at a depository. And there's more information about precious metals on our webpage. Can you please speak to Grayscale's plan to expand its offerings into more spaces? What I mean is, it would be nice to be able to allocate 401k funds to a Grayscale BTC or large cap product, or potentially a 529 education savings account. Are all Grayscale products available at Entrust?
I believe we actually have a product suite, and we do have diversified product. We have a diversified product. Today we are not taking, that product is closed and we're not taking new subscriptions for it. It's just the products are periodically open and closed. And yes, all our products should be available via Entrust.
All right, thank you. Help me understand this. If no physical backing, what makes Bitcoin go up and down or even go bankrupt?
There is no concept of bankruptcy for Bitcoin. To have bankruptcy, you have to have debt. So Bitcoin, they can never go bankrupt.
All right, thank you. Please elaborate on how capital gains are reported when trading digital currencies. This year's 1040 tax form, question 3, was related to investment in crypto.
I actually, it's funny, I'm not allowed to speak about that because we're not tax advisors. So all I can say is to speak with your tax accountant. I apologize.
And I will echo the same thing. We're not tax advisors as well, and we do not offer tax advice. So that's a good question for your tax advisor or CPA. Who will spend resources to process Bitcoin transactions once there are no Bitcoin to be mined?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Who will spend resources to process Bitcoin transactions once there are no Bitcoin to be mined?
That's a great question. Over time, as we get closer to the supply limit, there's also transaction fees, and we expect that transaction fees will rise to compensate miners for keeping the network secure. So there will always be a form of compensation.
Perfect, thank you. Does your fund allow buy and sell within market value? Is it a fixed time commitment? What has been your 2020 results been for 12 months, 6 months, 90 days?
So I'm going to have that person, anybody who has specific questions on our products, would just ask them to shoot me an email or send an email to our info box.
All right, great, thank you. And everyone, the contact information is listed on the screen. Is Entrust start offering digital currency investment opportunities soon? So again, Entrust, we are only record keepers and custodians. We do not offer any sort of investments or investment advice. Entrust obviously allows investing in IRA. I'm not entirely sure what that question is asking, but can you invest in Grayscale using your Entrust IRA? Absolutely. All right, next question. Can you speak about staking?
Yeah, so I think there's the way that today, so high level staking, right now the algorithm, this is getting kind of technical, that's used to validate these transactions is proof of work. So it's like, are you an honest player? Did you expend energy, so to speak, to solve this proverbial math problem? Some protocols are moving to a different system called proof of stake, where people can take a portion of the tokens that they have and basically put them up as collateral, so to speak, to have a say in what's going on in the protocol and to have like a impact, so to speak.
All right, great, thank you. Can Ripple be purchased through Grayscale?
Today, we do not have an XRP product.
Okay. What differences are there between Ethereum and Bitcoin?
There's a few. So I think of Bitcoin, again, Ethereum is a much newer protocol. Basically, I think of Bitcoin is something that's used for peer-to-peer transactions and is like a digital gold. Ethereum is like a distributed computer that runs these smart contracts that you can build applications on. So I think of Ethereum conceptually as like an iOS for the phone, except it's totally decentralized. But that is a broad question that I think we'll have to handle through some of our research or some, outside the context of this call. It's a great question.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the fees associated with these investments? So Entrust fees, you can find our fee schedule on our website, or you can send me an email and I'll send you a copy of our fee disclosure, and then Ray, I'll let you speak on y'all's fees.
Yep, the fees for all our products are just 2 to 2.5%, excuse me. We don't collect any kind of performance fee. It's just 2 or 2.5% per year. And it's taken in kind. We take our fees in kind. So, if someone had $100 that they sent to us to invest, that $100 would get invested.
All right, great, thank you. Next question, can you buy and own digital assets, coins, tokens in a Roth IRA? So we actually, at Entrust, there's 7 different types of accounts that you can utilize to buy digital assets. That's a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, an ESA, an HSA, and a solo 401k. So all 7 of those plans you can utilize to buy digital assets inside of that retirement account. All right, what are the fees associated with this investment? Oh, we just asked that one. Next question. We already have Grayscale, BTC, and ETH in a traditional IRA. Okay, great. How easy is it to sell digital assets?
Digital assets, depending on the asset, just like there's some, different financial products that are larger or smaller, have different levels of liquidity. There are some digital assets that would be considered very liquid, like Bitcoin.
All right.
Less liquid.
Thank you. Can we get a copy of the slides? Yes, the presentation will be available afterwards. Do you need to be an accredited investor to open a self-directed IRA? No, we do not require you to be an accredited investor to open an account with Entrust. All right, next question. What differentiates one cryptocurrency from another?
Different cryptocurrencies are the different native tokens associated with each blockchain. So each cryptocurrency has its own blockchain, which is basically a distributed ledger.
All right, great, thank you. Next question. To buy a cryptocurrency as an Entrust client, can we buy from any exchange? Yes. All right, next question. What if our million of assets for qualifying as an accredited investor is in cryptocurrency? Is that sufficient? How do we get approved in this scenario?
That's kind of an operational question. It's case by case basis. I would say that to the extent you get to the point where you're, at least from our trying to make an investment with us, that's something that we can discuss and see, with our ops team and with the onboarding team. But I don't have a specific answer to that at this point.
Great, thank you. For Grayscale, what is the minimum investment for your Bitcoin or ETH?
So I'm not going to speak to specific products because currently our Bitcoin and Ethereum products are closed. But what I can say is for all of our products, except 2 of them, the minimums are $25,000.
All right, great, thank you. Next question. Can you expand upon the digital exchanges and how cold storage will be a safer way to store coins and tokens?
Sure, I can from a high level. Cold storage just means that things are stored offline on a device that's not hooked up to the internet, so it can't get hacked. But I think to learn more about that, I definitely think that that's more of an offline conversation.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question. I already opened an account through Entrust. I opted to hold the keys myself. It is taking many months to get either Coinbase or Gemini to actually get me open. I have done all of their steps and the funds are currently held in a Roth IRA LLC. Is there a speedier way to get that to the exchanges, to get the exchanges to move? Can you send me an email on that and we'll talk about that offline, please? All right, next question. Are your products ETFs, and if so, how much are the fees?
Today, our products are not ETFs. There are no cryptocurrency ETFs that have yet been approved in the US. However, our products are private placements that ultimately have public market liquidity. And so in ways they function like ETFs, but they don't have redemption mechanisms and they're not listed on national exchanges. The fees for all of our products are between 2 and 2.5%.
Great, thank you. For Grayscale, for your product, is there a liquidating duration requirement?
Our private placements are offered under something called 506C, which is an exempt transaction under the SEC. And what that means is that something called Rule 144 applies, which is all to say that people who buy our private placements, for most of them, have to hold the products for a year. For some of them, some of the products have a 6-month hold.
Okay, great, thank you. Next question, how do you get started? I went over that at the end of the presentation. It's 3 basic steps. Open up your Entrust account, fund the account, select the investment and the investment strategy, and then purchase the investment. If you want to talk in further detail, feel free to send me an email or give me a call, please.
And from my perspective, it's the same thing. You can certainly just send me an email. You have the contact details, or you can go to our website and hit the Start Investing button.
All right, next question. I believe Ray just said minimum subscription at Grayscale is $25,000. I am considering investing a smaller amount via my existing Entrust account. Could you please review the process? Please reach out to Ray or her team and they will help walk you through that process. All right, next question. Can I fund a cryptocurrency self-directed IRA with my existing Entrust traditional precious metals IRA? If so, will I be holding the Bitcoin or a certificate of some sort inside of the self-directed IRA? So first part of the question is, can I fund a cryptocurrency self-directed IRA with my existing Entrust traditional precious metals IRA? You would need to liquidate, so you can't use the metals to buy the cryptocurrency, but you can liquidate your metals account and then purchase the cryptocurrency using the cash that's inside of your traditional IRA account. And then in regards to holding the Bitcoin or the certificate or some sort with the self-directed IRA, that's going to completely depend on your strategy. So whether you're buying directly, whether you're buying through a fund, or you're going the LLC route. And you can reach out to me if you would like further information on those 3 options. All right, next question. Do you consider Ethereum less volatile than Bitcoin, and why?
I wouldn't say that. I don't think that that's not a statement I would make.
Okay, next question. Can either of you recommend a tax firm with crypto knowledge? I do not. Ray, do you have any tax advisors?
We're not allowed to make recommendations around that, unfortunately.
Okay. Do you allow staking on your platform, or how far out, specifically Cardano?
We don't have a Cardano product today.
Okay. Do I need to create an LLC for single investment or one particular coin or token with a self-directed IRA? Again, it's up to you. There's different strategy options for purchasing the cryptos. You can do an investment directly. You can invest in a fund, as Ray has mentioned what Grayscale does, or you can go the LLC route. So there's 3 options for your investment strategy there. All right, next question. What fees are associated with it? We've already gone through that. Considering governments are trying to figure out how to get their teeth in digital currency, how do third-party monitor role players that use digital currency for black market transactions?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one?
Sure. Considering governments are trying to figure out how to get their teeth in digital currency, and how do third-party monitor rogue players that use digital currency for black market transactions?
I think that's a great question. The interesting thing about digital currency is that there's a blockchain and everything is tracked. So if I wanted to do something nefarious, I would probably be much better off meeting Mindy, you know, with a suitcase of cash versus going on the blockchain and sending money in a way that there's going to be absolutely a record of it. Now, from our perspective as an SEC and FINRA, you know, a fund that issues products through an SEC and FINRA registered broker dealer, we are very buttoned up about that. So there are forensic tools to run KYC and AML and just run forensics on any tokens that we source that go into our products.
All right, great, thank you. Let's see, next question. Does Entrust assist with Roth IRA LLC setup? So the answer to that is we do not. We leave it up to the client to set up the LLC on their own. All right, next question. If we open an Entrust Roth IRA, transfer IRA funds to it, do we still trade the crypto in Coinbase connected to Entrust? So depending on, again, this goes back to depending on which strategy you're using, you could or you could not. So if you want to connect offline, we can discuss those options as well. All right, next question. Says, please remind everyone we are not allowed to self-custody any assets in the IRAs. That means you cannot hold your digital assets on your own wallets like Ledger Nano. They need to be at a qualified custodian. So that is if you're investing in cryptos through an IRA, you have to use a custodian to hold those. All right, it looks like that's it for the questions. If anyone else has questions, go ahead and type those in now. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up the webinar. We'll just give it another 30 seconds or so for you to get your last minute questions in. Looks like one, can you repeat the last statement? So in order to, the last question was, they wanted me to remind everyone, in order to invest in assets inside of your IRA, you have to have your money with a custodian who will hold those types of assets. Not every custodian out there, like a Charles Schwab or TD, will hold those types of assets. Only specialized custodians will hold specifically privately held assets. So in order to do that, you have to have your money with a custodian like Entrust who holds those alternative assets for your clients or for you. All right, looks like there's one other question coming through. The $25,000 minimum is a per asset, or can it be diversified among a few?
Currently, it is per asset.
Okay. Looks like there's a couple other questions coming through. What were the 7 plans for investments with Entrust? So the 7 different types of retirement plans that you can use to invest in alternatives are a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, a SEP IRA, a simple IRA, an ESA, an HSA, and a solo 401k. All right, last question. It says life insurance is not allowed. They weren't sure if the IRS would allow crypto. Yeah, there's gray areas with self-directed. If you're unsure, we definitely recommend seeking legal advice. If you have any questions on that, we're not legal advisors, so speak to your legal counsel or your attorney if you have questions on that. All right, it looks like that is it for questions. We're going to go ahead and wrap up the webinar now. Ray, thank you very much for joining us and reviewing with us the crypto world. And again, just as a reminder, if you have a few minutes, please take the post-webinar survey, and the recording will be available on our website. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on, Mindy, and thank you everyone for listening and for the great questions.